Deep in the heart of Texas. What's going on in the great state of Texas right now is very entertaining, and it's a good civics lesson if you don't understand a lot about how the US government works and how politics work in the US. We're going to react to this video on the Gutfeld show, learn a little bit more, and see how Trump keeps winning and they hate it. He's playing 4D chess, they're playing checkers, and CNN eventually has to admit that he's one of the most consequential presidents of our lifetime.
Districting. Their goal? Break quorum so Republicans couldn't pass laws that would redraw the Texas congressional map. Now, redistricting is something the Dems do all the time in places like California and New York, but they scream fascism when somebody else does it. But what did Republicans do? Well, Texas Governor Abbott threatened to remove these legislators from office. Now, that's aggressive. Not in your face, angry, but deliberate, unapologetic, legislating like a boss, instead of being a graceful loser, also known as the Romney effect. Yeah, it's the clearest contrast we've got. Democrats run, Republicans do their job. Now, this is nothing new. The left is always passive aggressive. Look at immigration. They refuse to enforce the law. Then they call the border crisis unsustainable, like it just appeared out of nowhere. And their fix? Make illegal immigration permanent and call it compassion. Then there's the Russia hoax. Democrats used the CIA and the FBI like rental hitmen and buried the evidence under reams of bureaucratic red tape. And the media bought it like it was a COVID booster.
It's because they wanted to believe that this was the case. There's been so many things that have been made up. Then the media jumps on it, runs with it. When the truth comes out, maybe they'll mention it like in a really small segment. But for the most part, they're looking for hoaxes to run with. Jesse Smollett. You can just count them one after the other, because it feeds their appetite for racism. And there's not enough supply. So they have to create these hoaxes and they have to create these false narratives that they can just attack the current administration.
And then they call Trump the dangerous one. At least with Trump, when he's trying to take you out, you can pretty much tell. Just ask this guy. And here's the truth. Americans like Trump's aggressiveness because it's better than fake civility. We're tired of backroom deals disguised as consensus. And Trump's becoming more influential by the day. Even CNN is catching on.
I can't think of a more influential president during this century, and it starts here with tariffs. The effective tariff rate at this point looks to be 9 times as high as it was last year, the highest since the 1930s.
And this was the thing that they kept saying. They're like, oh, it's never worked. Tariffs will always drive inflation. You can't just compare things that happened in the 1930s. There was no internet. There weren't all these other things going on. So economists that just wanted to find something negative to say and talk down the economy to the detriment of the American citizens, they compared it to the 1930s and they talked about what happened previously. They didn't give it a chance. And the other thing that they keep forgetting, this man is playing 4D chess. I'll keep saying it. So it's not just that he was implementing tariffs, which at the highest rate, he was never going to implement them. He was always going to set a really high number and then come down, because then that's just how you negotiate. And this is the problem with a lot of the politicians. They've never had their own business. They've never employed people. They've always been spending the taxpayers' money. So they don't understand how to negotiate. Plus, no matter what he does, they're going to criticize. So when you see Harry Enton, I think his name is, just talking through the numbers, they hate it. And when he says something like this, like Trump is the most consequential president of this decade, if you look at the numbers and things that have been done in the first 6 months, it's lots of stuff. And you have to give credit where credit is due. He's proved them wrong about the tariffs so far. So everything that they said, the doom and gloom, the stock market was going to crash. The stock market definitely went down when Liberation Day happened. And they were like, see, we told you. And then all they wanted to do was talk about the stock market. When the stock market then recovered, and not only recovered, went to historic highs, they were like, no, we don't want to talk about the stock market. When the tariffs did not cause the inflation at the rate that they were predicting, and they were certain it was 100% going to cause inflation. Now, I'm recording this in August of 2025. The tariffs still have not done the damage that they claim that it will. But now what they're saying is it just hasn't happened yet. It just hasn't happened yet. So they can't even concede, even if they were to just say, well, we were wrong, but let's see what happens from here. They can't even say the we were wrong part. So when you watch CNN and people actually have the quotes written out, like Scott Jennings, you said this in March, April. We're now in July. We're actually now in August, and these things still haven't happened. Just give the man his flowers. You know, you can call him out for all the things you don't like, but just give him the flowers on the things that are so far proving that they're making the American economy stronger.
FDR, Omar. The other big thing that Trump ran on, right, was immigration. How about net migration into the United States? Get this, it's down. It's going to be down at least 60%. How about executive orders? Already, 180 executive orders signed by Donald Trump this year. Donald Trump is remaking the United States. Love it, like it, or lump it. He has been tremendously influential to a historic degree, Omar.
Yeah, Omar. Take that, Omar. Listen, we prefer aggressive over passive aggressive because at least when Trump takes a swing at you, he does it in public. The Democrats, they skip the vote, leak to the media, leave town, and call it governing. We'll take the blunt orange guy. At least we know where he stands. And unlike the last president, we know this president can stand.
I think that's one of the things that there's certain leaders that you have to respect it. If you are a principled person, you have to respect certain leaders. You may not like them. You may not agree with their policies. So like me, Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, don't agree with his policies, but I respect the fact that he's consistent. In my view, consistently wrong, but he's consistent. He doesn't just go with the flavor of the month. He's like the British version of Bernie Sanders. Again, someone, for the most part, other than him folding to the Democratic Party when they kneecapped him against Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders has had the same bad ideas for decades. He's been ineffective as a senator as far as passing any legislation, but his ideas, his belief system has been consistent. Same thing for Trump. You may not like him, you may not agree with his ideas, but when you watch his interviews on Oprah 20, 30 years ago, he was saying the same thing. He's been consistent in saying the same thing. And as much as people will say that he flip-flops and he folds, it's a consistent negotiating tactic. So he'll say a really bombastic thing, and then he'll adjust it to get the outcome that he wants. Because if he says, well, we're going to put tariffs up to 150% and everyone runs around like their hair is on fire, and then we end up with tariffs at this 18%, it seems super low. But if he had said 18 in the first place, you'd probably never end up at 18. But this is how you negotiate. These politicians wouldn't know that.
All right, let's welcome tonight's guest. He's the kind of guy even telemarketers regret calling. Comedian and star of the new YouTube special, Unconceivable, Jim Norton. She understands bulls and bears better than a zookeeper. Financial analyst Heather Zumaraga. She's back because she heard Greg was gone. New York Times bestselling author, Fox News contributor Kat Tim. And horses measure their strength in Tyrus Power. New York Times bestselling author, comedian, former NWA world champion Tyrus. Boom, boom, boom. All right, I want to get your analysis on my searing monologue, Kat, but I want to say this. We're going to be making fun of each other this whole show, but I want to take some sincere... Listen, I'm so glad to have you back. America's so lucky. God bless that baby of yours, and you look great.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm not used to someone being nice to me sitting over there.
Okay, we'll try to change that.
Wait, what the hell, man? I've been gone too. You gonna say something nice to me?
Tyrus,
No, hell no. It's you know what I'm saying. Was I here last week? No. Thanks, Shalou.
I prayed for you too.
No, you didn't.
Kat!
It is good having Kat back. She just brings that different angle to things because she's not a Democrat, she's not a Republican, she's a libertarian. That's the word I was looking for. She's a libertarian. So again, don't necessarily agree with everything she says, but she brings that balance, and it is good that she's back. She was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm glad that she's healthy, her baby's healthy, all of that.
So do you like my analysis? Republicans, aggressive, Democrats, passive aggressive.
Okay, so it's definitely aggressive. And I also think this is a perfect example of something that it's just politics, right? It's when the other side does it, it's fascism, especially because where they're going, Illinois, that is a very gerrymandered place, right? Like that's a perfect example of a place that's like that. But I also think that if Abbott has them arrested, that would look better for them. Like they would love to have those photos of them being arrested and becoming heroes.
Yes,
I think
they want it.
I think they do want it. I think they do want it.
I think the thing is, Tyrus, I don't know the particulars of this, but people talked about, arresting them or, putting them in handcuffs, that kind of thing. Now, Abbott's excuse was he said they went to Illinois because they wanted Pritzker's money. And if you're taking money for a political stunt, that might be breaking the law. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that
Before we get into that, I do want to say one of the things that has happened in this generation is after the civil rights movement and all of the great leaders that came out of the civil rights movement, it feels like a lot of people are trying to recreate that. So they want that viral moment of them being arrested, or that viral moment of someone in their face shouting at them, that they can have the black and white photo, which wouldn't be black and white now, but have that photo of that iconic moment. And it's manufactured in the 1960s. And when the civil rights movement was at its height, people weren't looking for a viral moment. They were just fighting for what they felt was right. So a lot of the stuff that they're doing now is performative. It's to get clicks. And the American people, I think, see right through it. They know that these people don't necessarily believe what they're doing is right. They just want to oppose the current administration at any cost, no matter what they're doing, even if it's stuff that previously they agreed with. If this administration is doing it, they must oppose it.
the thing that the handcuffing thing might look good, but this is a different time. They're not going to be arrested during the Biden era, where they'll be out within the afternoon. So they're going to get really arrested. And I don't know if they'll like it. And the other thing is that they could lose their job. So they'd be removed from office, and that makes sense to me, because what job in the world, like, for example, if we had here, Kat, reviews, like we had to go in Greg's office, he'd review our work, and we decided I'm not going to go in today because I don't feel like being reviewed. I'm going to stick it out in Florida and go swimming. Eventually, I wouldn't have a job anymore. There's any job that you could work at to where you'd be like, oh man, we got to do restocking at Walmart this week. You know what? I'm just going to not come in until they restock. You wouldn't have a job anymore. So running away from the problem to look good to whom? You're 17%, 12% favorable in polls. No one likes you. So this is not the time to leave your job. If anything, you should go to work, do the vote, and if you lose, then make points. But again, this is an adult talking. Make points to why next time around maybe they'll see it your way, but have a better excuse than always blaming Trump. But
Exactly. And this is the thing. People want people that are doing the work for them, that are going to be doing things, passing legislation to make their lives easier, to make them be able to afford more, get the first home, all of that. They don't want people that are just always doing political stunts for the purpose of getting that bigger or greater political power to move into the next role, But
the other side of it is, what are the Republicans going to have when Trump is gone? Because, the aggressiveness is President Trump.
I'm not sure if I totally agree with that. I think
12% favorable.
it's Trump, but I also think that you do have a new generation of Republicans and Democrats that are willing to do the work, willing to just be a little bit different. It's not like your father's Republican Party or your father's Democratic Party. It's a whole new breed. These are people that were brought up in a digital age as opposed to, the black and white television. These are people that kind of look at things differently, may think things through differently and more critically.
Vote, and if you lose, then make points. But again, this is an adult talking. Make points to why next time around maybe they'll see it your way, but have a better excuse than always blaming Trump. But the other side of it is, what are the Republicans going to have when Trump is gone? Because, yeah, the aggressiveness is President Trump.
All right. So he said it twice, and I think he's right both times. Trump has reshaped both parties. Both political parties have responded to his personality style. But you can also look globally. I think globally, politics has changed because we live in a digital age. There's less that these politicians can do that is unseen, unheard. They can't say they didn't say a thing, even though they will kind of gaslight you and act like they didn't. And I just think globally that the politicians and the leaders are being seen globally. And unfortunately, I think maybe some of the politicians play to a global market rather than just saying what is best for my country. You can criticize the America First agenda and you can call it what you want. But honestly, every politician, every leader of a country should be putting the needs of their citizens first and foremost. That's not to say that you go and you disadvantage other people. It doesn't have to be that way. It just means when you're sitting at that negotiating table, you're trying to craft something, understanding what your citizens need, and you're trying to craft something that's going to make sure that not just now in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to benefit your citizens. That's what leadership is all about. I think what we had for a really long time is leaders that would just respond to whatever the latest poll says. But with that said, I understand that because as a politician, like people vote based on the now. People vote based on their current economic situation. So some things are going to take a little bit longer. And I think that's one of the things that I do like about the American political system as opposed to the British one. So in the British system, the parliamentarian system, you could have a leader of the party. So you have Labour, Conservatives as the two main parties. So Labour is kind of like the Democrats and conservatives are kind of like the Republicans, but both parties are much further left, I would say. But you can have a leader of the party. So whereas in America, you kind of vote in the person, so you'd vote in Trump. In the UK, you kind of vote in the party. So you would vote in that party. But what I don't like is they can do something called like a no confidence vote where the people can vote and say, or the parliamentarians, the MPs can say, we don't have confidence in this person's leadership. And then that party would replace the leader. So if you've looked at any UK politics over the last 5 years since COVID, and during that time, you had Boris Johnson. First, you had Theresa May, then you had Boris Johnson, then you had, I forget her name, she was only prime minister for a short time. And then you had Rishi Sunak, and now you have Kemi. But like the party can have several different leaders. And I think what I don't like about that is the fact that because people are always encouraged, or the incentive is to do the right thing now and the popular thing now, that you keep your party on side. Sometimes they don't make the brave and bold moves that need to be made. Not everything is going to have an instant reward. Some things are going to be hard at first, and you need to be able to make a decision. And that's why I think the American political system of having the president for 4 years, you do have the checks and balances because you do have impeachment, but you can go in and say, you know what, in the first year and a half, maybe I just have to take the hit on my numbers, but it will start to work its way through the population and through the economy by the midterm. But historically, whoever's in power does lose seats in the midterm. But I think it's a better system. And I think, the limiting of how many times someone can be president so they can serve 2 terms, all of those things make the US political system one of the envies of the world. I think the founding fathers had wisdom beyond their time. There's a lot of things that need to be tweaked, and there's things, that maybe we need some amendments for this current era. But overall, it's a great system. I didn't mean to go off into that, but I just think it's interesting. Trump keeps winning. It's been a historic first 6 months. You may not like the man, but he said what he was going to do, and he's done a lot of it. He's taken a lot of things through court. So as much as they say he's a dictator, but then they criticize him for the lawsuits or for him actually using the Supreme Court. They hate the fact that the Supreme Court right now, the balance is more on the conservative side. So they talked about stacking the Supreme Court. Now, when they get the ruling that they want, then all of a sudden it's a legitimate entity. But when they don't, then they're like, oh, we don't trust the Supreme Court. They're all doing Donald Trump's bidding. The best thing that will happen is I hope that, America has a great 4 years under Trump. And then whoever, comes next has another 4 years. But I just think that I hope that he has a good term, that the American economy and the American people can benefit from, the things that he's looking to do. He comes out of office, because once he's out of office, who are they going to attack? He'll be out of office. He'll be old. He'll be retired, spending time with his kids and grandkids, J.D. Vance or whoever it will be president after that, or maybe it will be a Democrat. Who will they attack? I say that to say this. It will be the same line of attack. They will always attack Republicans with the exact same things. They're racist. They're homophobic. They're racist. They're homophobic. So it doesn't matter who, but I think the bad move that they've made, and this is again playing checkers when they're playing 4D chess. The bad move that they've made, they've heightened the anxiety so much about this man being so evil and a threat to democracy. Just the fact that we still have a democracy is proving them wrong. When the next elections come around and he doesn't run and he doesn't do anything crazy, it will prove them wrong. And then the hysteria, like people will be so used to hearing that foolishness that there's nothing else that they'll be able to say, because they'll just look like the hacks that they are, just, coming up with these focus group lines to say about the opposing party. Anyway, that's just my view. I'm just a guy with a Wi-Fi connection and a camera, so I could be wrong. I welcome your comments, even the mean ones. I do my best to respond to your comments. This is a small channel. I really appreciate you watching. Some people watch but don't subscribe. I really appreciate your subscription. You may know someone, like my uncle potentially, who this would completely trigger. For a laugh, just share this video with them. Like, subscribe, comment, and I do my best, as I said, to respond to all the comments that I can.